What's up, everybody? I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and welcome to the Right Mindset. Today, it's all about plot point 2 within this playlist. Because introducing the inciting incident, which is the event that literally kicks off your protagonist's journey, for without an inciting incident, there is no story, no plot, no narrative. It's the moment when the ordinary world is disrupted, forcing the protagonist to confront a new challenge or opportunity. So the inciting incident itself presents the protagonist with a problem or event that they can't ignore, pulling them out of their normal routine and into the main plot. Without this event, there would literally be no story. It's the catalyst that changes everything. That's why today is all about storytelling secrets, how to nail the inciting incident, and the point of plot point 2 in the 27 plot point outline. This series is going to be focused on every single one of those 27 plot points, this one being the second. But, Thomas, what is the plot point to the inciting incident? Well, as I said, the inciting incident is literally the spark that propels the protagonist out of their comfort zone and into the journey ahead. Now, whether it's a phone call, a mysterious stranger arriving in town, or an unexpected loss, the moment is designed to force the protagonist to react. The inciting incident is what makes it impossible for the protagonist to return to the status quo, giving them a reason to take action. All right. Which also is the choice that leads to the adventure or challenge that will propel Act Two, right? The question of the truth they believe. Okay. It's what grabs the protagonist and the audience by the shoulders and says, nothing will ever be the same. Now, more importantly, an inciting incident does not need to be a grand scale event. It does not have to be like, you know, the monster, the godlike monster has appeared, and everyone has to fight it. It could be intimate. It could be small. It could be an inconvenience. It could be losing their job. It could be popping their tire. It could be, let's see. It could be as small as waking up depressed, or as big as the meteor is coming towards Earth. Okay. So don't think about an inciting incident disrupting the status quo of the ordinary world as something that is so traumatic you can't do anything. Because everybody's life is different, therefore every narrative is different, and the story of how a character moves through the plot is going to be different. And when it comes down to it, the second plot point, it's a plot point, is that it just needs to make their status quo different. It needs to say, hey, I know this is what you're used to. You've become comfortable with this life, but something is about to change the way you approach it. All right. So the moment that changes everything. Okay. Now, there are 3 things I'm going to go over for this, and I'll give a quick example of each, but let's talk about the catalyst for change. So this is the most obvious and what people mostly know about the inciting incident is that it's the catalyst that forces your protagonist to literally take action or make a decision. Okay. It should feel like something big enough that it disrupts their ordinary world, but not necessarily overwhelming them yet. It can be anything, like I said, from an unexpected opportunity to a shocking revelation or a call for help. Whatever it is, it introduces a problem or challenge that requires attention and cannot be ignored. So, for example, if imagine there's a character named Sophie, and she's a librarian from the ordinary world, and her inciting incident might be receiving a mysterious letter that hints at a family secret she didn't know existed. This letter pulls Sophie out of a predictable life and gives her a reason to explore something new. So, this doesn't mean she explores the truth of the letter. It just means she gets the letter, and now she has this new information that, if true, will change her whole life. And remember, her truth is, no, my family has no secrets. Okay. So really, her whole thing would be about, like, how do I prove to myself that I'm right and this letter is wrong? Before even opening the letter, right? You get a letter and then she opens it up and the inciting incident says, hey, there's a family secret you don't know about. And they read it and they go, there's no way this is true. This ain't true. So then they're basically trying to disprove that. All right. Leading up to the midpoint conflict where it is inevitably revealed that the truth of the lie. Okay. Now, a moment that demands reaction. Now, this plot point should create a situation that demands a reaction from the protagonist. It forces them to consider their options and makes it impossible to continue with their life as it was before. This moment doesn't mean that they take immediate action. That's coming up soon in another plot point, but it does set them on a collision course with the story's main conflict, which is ultimately revealing the truth of the lie. This moment for Sophie, she'll get the letter, she reads it, and the hesitation is there because she's like, because the letter's implications might be larger than the life she has. It might disrupt her life so completely that, wow, if this is true, then not only everything that I have done up to this point is questionable, but etc. etc. Right? So it suggests her family history isn't what she thought. So she's like, oh man, do I investigate this or do I not investigate it? Right? So this is going to lead to that thought. We're not there yet. There. We're not there with the do I investigate this or not. But this moment is going to lead to that. It's going to lead to what do I do with this information? But she still needs to have a moment that reacts to that information. It could be dismissal, or whatever the case may be. But she sees it, she reads it, and she's just like, "This is who gave this to you, right? Like whoever handed it, who gave this to you? Oh, well, the mailman just gave you this. What? What? There's no address on it, right? Like she's having like it's whoa, this is okay. This is a lot. This is a lot, right? And that is the moment. Okay, it's an immediate react. Well, not the immediate reaction per se, but it's taking it in, and they have to have an emotional reaction to that truth. It's not necessarily considered, as one might say, uh, because there's a third plot point, right? And the third plot point is the immediate reaction of the inciting incident, which, well, not immediate, but the protagonist reacts to it. So this is where they start taking a little bit more effort into figuring out what the deal is. Okay. But plot point 2 is just the letter comes, they read the letter, it has to affect them somehow emotionally. That doesn't mean they are technically reacting to it. The reaction is a whole other plot point. That's the third plot point. We will go into that. Okay. Number 3, creating a sense of urgency. Now, the inciting incident should create urgency and a sense that something has fundamentally changed. The protagonist can't simply return to their old life without feeling the effects of this disruption. It is the moment when the protagonist realizes that the status quo is no longer an option, which is a powerful motivator for action. So basically, after receiving this mysterious letter, she might discover her library has been being watched, or she received a cryptic warning or something, right? Now there's urgency. But more importantly, let's say she gets the letter, she opens it up, and in that moment, there's information in there that reveals a secret that, let's say, I don't know, her parents are actually Russian spies. And they were in the 80s, but you know, they're not spies anymore because the Cold War's over. But the daughter didn't know, right? And Sophie's like, "Who would give? Why? This is a joke. This is a prank. This ain't real, right? But if it is real, right? Like, it, how does this change my existence? This changes my existence somehow, right? So it creates that sense of urgency where it's like, well, I either don't believe this because like it's just random that someone gave me a letter, or I completely believe this, right? Whatever the case may be. But why does the inciting incident matter though when you're working on this, right? The inciting incident is what gets the ball rolling. It matters because it provides the reason for your protagonist, okay, for your protagonist's journey and raises questions that need answers. It also presents a clear contrast with the ordinary world emphasizing the change that has just occurred. The plot point is what engages your reader, drawing them in by showing that something has shifted and that the protagonist must deal with it. A well crafted inciting incident creates intrigue, introduces stakes, and gives the audience a reason to invest in the protagonist's story. It's where readers begin to ask themselves what's going to happen next and will the protagonist handle it. More importantly, when you look at an inciting incident, a strong inciting incident, uh, a strong inciting incident can also feel a part of the ordinary world, but because, well, a good example is the Hunger Games. So Katniss's ordinary world is there's a thing called the Reaping Day, and the Reaping they come and they draw some random numbers or names out of a hat, and you get picked, and then you got to go die in an arena. I mean, fight in an arena to live or die, right? For your district, all for the entertainment of the capital. Now, that is still her ordinary world is she has to deal with the Reaping Day. The inciting incident is technically that the Reaping Day is happening, but it's more that the daughter's name got pulled and she goes, no, whatever it is, she's like, I want to take her place. I'm for tribute, right? So the inciting incident, the that emotional moment is not the react. By the way, her reaction isn't that her sister got called, and now the immediate reaction would be plot point 3. Hey, no, I'll be tribute. No, the whole inciting incident is the collection of, hey, Prim has been chosen, and then she's like, no, I will be tribute. I want to take my sister's place. So the inciting incident is basically being put into a situation where she is chosen for the reaping. And that is the inciting incident. So the way it does is it introduces stakes. So now she just saved her family, but she's also, right? Katniss is also the one who does the hunting, takes care of the family. Like she's being removed from them. So the stakes are, okay, I just saved my sister's life, but I also, what are they going to do? In that moment, the stakes have been raised even before she questions it, before she thinks about it, which happens in the next plot point is, she has to say goodbye to her family and everything, right? But in that moment, the stakes are risen even before she thinks about it. She is the sole breadwinner and takes care of the family, and she had to take herself out of that position, putting them in risk basically to save the sister who would have definitely died in the challenge. So now she's in that situation, but also her life is now in danger, right? So the stakes have been risen. It's very important. All right. Let's get some tips for writing plot point 2. One of the most important elements of an inciting incident is that you want to make it unavoidable. Okay? The inciting incident should be something that the protagonist can't ignore. It might make them uncomfortable or scare them, but it has to be big enough to break through their normal routine. So, for example, the reaping, that was inevitable. She was waking up on the reaping day, because right in the chapter 1 is the reaping day. Okay. And then it was inevitable that they were going to choose the sister's name, because once it came out of the house, that's it. Your sister was chosen. So she was like, I have to say I will take tribute. Okay. It definitely makes everybody involved in that, especially her family, uncomfortable, including Katniss. And she's obviously scared. Her sister was instantly like, right? I'm not doing this. Even the ugly cat was like, no. Okay. But I will say, like, again, the inciting incident can also activate something that was believed to be fixed, for example, right? So like if your story has a character that's dealing with their past, and are they, their foot is in two different worlds, and then they're like, hey, you know what, I'm going to commit to this new life because I can't go back to my old life. Like that's their ordinary world. They were taken out of their old life and put into this new situation and given responsibilities, and they're going to step into those responsibilities. But then, and doing so, they're going to protect what is real to them now because they can't save or protect what they lost. So they're going to dedicate their lives to protecting what is real and safe now. But ultimately, something happens, and then they're like, wait a minute, maybe I'm not as capable as I thought I was. Maybe these people are still in danger. So I have to find a way to be better and stronger. I have to find a way to be able to protect them the best I can. And that is ultimately whatever their arc is. Like, how do I save these people who have taken me in? How do I do what I have to do? Right? Because the truth of the lie is I can protect them. I am capable, right? I am capable. Which brings us to the raise a question, right? So you want to use the inciting incident to raise a compelling question that the story will eventually answer. And this is how you hook the reader, basically. Like, okay, this happened. So what's going to happen, right? And in the Hunger Games, it's all right, well, her family is safe, but what's going to happen is Katniss going to live or die? But more importantly, what's nice is the audience doesn't obviously everyone knows the Hunger Games now. But when the book came out, no one knew what the book was really about when they're reading it. They only know that the reaping exists, and if you follow the narrative, it's okay. Your sister was chosen, you took her place. What's going to happen to you? There's a chance you could die, right? But your mom and your sister are going to be left alone. So that's the question. But then it turns out, wait, there's actually more involved in this. There's because of the truth of the lie that's revealed, all these other things that happen in the book that ultimately say, all right, what we thought was true is also false, because everything's being revealed, right? So the question that is compelling in the Hunger Games is, will she survive? But then another question comes up, and so forth and so on. And that question gets challenged. So if you're writing a story, it's not that it has to bring up a direct question, but what is at stake? What is the issue? What is the problem they have to solve? These become questions. All right. How will your character deal with this? These are questions, right? Or Saving Private Ryan. Tom Hanks's character. Two of the three brothers died, and Tom Hanks is hired to be not hired, but ordered to go find this Private Ryan and be like, hey, so will they find the questions that will they find saving will they save saving private will they save Private Ryan? Will they survive trying to save Private Ryan? Is Private Ryan still alive? Because at one point they realize he may be dead. Right? There's a couple of things like that. They're going through the tags, the dog tags, right? So, spoiler alert. It raises that question what's your mission? Okay, but what could happen outside the fact that this mission? And you also want to set up the conflict. So make sure the inciting incident creates the potential for that conflict, either the protagonist or with external forces. What that basically means is it's either going to be an internal conflict or an external conflict. Now, I love writing stories where it's sort of there's an amalgamation of conflicts, but the thing that's interesting to me is the internal conflict. I want to watch the character battle something internally. So in my story, the battle is there's a few battles of conflict, but the inciting incident is the battle of self, the strength of self, capability, willingness, what does it mean to truly protect people that you care about, things like that, right? But there's also an external force. There's the army that took over the region, right? And then formed the emperor, right? So it's been 10 years or whatever at this point, but or yeah. The book, it's 5 years, but then like the real story starts like years after that. So there are two forces. There's the world as it is with the occupying force, and then there's the internal story of the main protagonist, who's dealing with something that's more intimate to them, and it's not large scale. The large scale conflict is actually not the main plot, so it may seem like it. And also, there's a tertiary conflict that is a part of the ordinary world, that it's like, oh, and then like the character sort of like deals with that in the first act, and then the second act actually goes, wait a minute, I was over that. I thought I didn't care about that, and now I do care about them. So it's a fun journey. And then there's layers, because there's other characters. Like, there's another character where it feels like the first half of the act two is really about their story, which is actually about the past, which also automatically brings in the story that's happening in the present. And so there's so many interconnecting elements to it that it becomes something a little bit more. So brings us to a final thought. I will say this: the inciting incident is your opportunity as a writer to make a powerful statement, one that shifts the protagonist's life forever. It doesn't have to be loud or action packed, it can be subtle, internal, and deeply personal. A small moment of realization, a quiet but powerful decision, or an internal shift can be just as impactful as an explosive event. Take Gladiator, the first one, The Gladiator, right, with Russell Crowe, okay, and Joaquin Phoenix, right? Am I not merciful? Okay, in that movie, the ordinary world is the battle with the Germain, the they're fighting to the last battle. They're trying to end the last battle of the war to bring peace. Okay, well, I shouldn't say war, but there is a thing going on between Rome and the Germans, right? Or the Germanic tribes. So that is not the inciting incident. In fact, that whole thing where you know, um, the release hell. Let's fight some people. The guy with no head comes in a horse. And then they fight, and then they win the battle, and then the emperor Marcus Aurelius says, we did good, right? And then the son of Commodus arrives, and he goes, "Oh, father, we shall kill. I shall slaughter 1,000 bulls in your honor for victory. Oh, save the bulls." That's the guy from Harry Potter too. The first two, Dumbledore. Um, that's still not the inciting incident. The inciting incident, spoiler, is when the emperor Marcus asks to speak with Maximus. They're in the tent, and he goes, "I am dying. I am dying, Maximus, and I want you to be the emperor." And he's like, "Oh, with all my heart, no. With all my heart, no." And he's like, "And that is why you must be, that is why you must be the choice." And it's like, "What about Commodus?" And he's like, "My son, no, he can't be." So that's the inciting incident. It's one of the it brings up the questions, Willy won't. What would Rome look like with Maximus? What would Rome look like with Commodus? But this is a small intimate inciting incident. It's not world shattering yet, because Marcus is still alive. Maximus still has a chance to think about it. It's not really adjusting the world completely yet. Like, it's in that moment of, Maximus, I know you want to go home because it's been whatever 3 years, something days, and this morning, that you haven't seen your family. You just want to go home to your family. But I want you to be the emperor. Okay, I want you to deal with a region, and I want you to give the Senate. I want the Senate to be part of the people again. And he's like, I don't know about this. And Margaret's like, don't worry, you think about it. You're the son I should have had, etc., etc. And it's just so intimate. It's just so very. It's not even like thunderous. But the questions that come up is what is this empire with Maximus? What is this empire with Commodus? Uh, will he, won't he say yay or nay? All this is coming up, but it's something he can't avoid because the emperor's like, you are my son. You're the one that needs to do this. And Maximus is like extremely loyal to Rome at this moment. He's a general, all these things, right? And he's like, if he says no, Commodus becomes the emperor. But they just had a conversation that Commodus he's not a morally good man. And it's like he would destroy Rome. So Maximus is like, I got to think about this, but obviously I have to do it, right? But he's not the one who says I have to think about it. The emperor says, just think about it. You have. Oh no. Maximus does say he will think about it, and then the emperor goes, you have until morning or something like that, or sunrise. Anyway, so it's intimate. It doesn't have to be aliens arrive, but it can be. All right. The inciting incident is going to spark the story forward. It's going to create the inevitable change. He was a general. He will now become emperor. Okay. And that's a new world. That's going to just change his life, right? However, everything is going to change, and it's going to force the protagonist to consider the new path, emperor. Or Katniss is, I'm going to be fighting for my life, right? It effectively this moment will help ensure that your protagonist's journey starts with a bang or a calm, quiet, inciting whoosh, setting them on a course filled with hopefully challenges, stakes, and growth. The more significant and intriguing the inciting incident, the more engaged your readers will be as they follow the protagonist into the unknown. The inciting incident isn't just a random event, it's the doorway to the adventure that lies ahead, and it should make readers engage on the page. So, significant and engaging. I know you're the general. The general has literally been saying, I get to go home after this. I'm going home after this. I'm going to go home after this. I can't wait to see my wife and kid. I miss them. And then Marcus is like, tell me about your family. And he's like, oh, my wife, her hair is black, and like black is, the soil is black like my wife's hair. And my son, he plays with the ponies and, they tease him or whatever. And he's just talking, and he's like, he's talking about being a farmer again. It's just a simple life. And then, they're like, you must be the emperor. And he was like, ooh. Right? So it becomes significant in that sense and intriguing. It's like, oh, this guy who doesn't want to be an emperor, he just wants to go back to his family. He just wants to live a simple life, is being asked to be thrown into this very complicated existence. And of course, writing an inciting incident can be tricky, but it's also one of the most exciting parts of your story. Think about what would disrupt your protagonist's life in a meaningful way, something that feels important enough to demand their attention. Because obviously, if Maximus was talking to the emperor and the emperor goes, hey, listen, I want to give you a new horse. Yeah, it's a new thing that's not from his ordinary world. And he goes, I want to congratulate you. You can go home because you were supposed to go home anyway. That story is gone, right? And that's technically still not the inciting incident now. The inciting incident would be that he goes home and there is a problem with the soil is bad, or his son is sick, or something. Like, it would be something different, because the ordinary world, there can't be any disruption. So a new horse and he gets to go home is still the ordinary world, and it could be. That story could have easily been, thank you, Maximus. You may go home. I bought you a new horse, and here's some gold for your reward. And he's like, thanks, boss. And he goes home, and then the ordinary world still has to be interrupted. However, if you're writing a book, okay, of that, you have to decide, how long do I want the ordinary world to be? And an ordinary world could be a chapter long, it could be a half a chapter. It could be, because remember, you could put more than one plot point into a chapter, right? But it's nice to spread them out and let them breathe. You could also make the first plot point, the ordinary world, like 3, 4, even 5 chapters. You're allowed to. Depends how big your book is, because you want that 10 to 12%. If your book is going to be X amount of 100,000 words, you know, you want the first, I don't know, 10,000 to 12,000 words will lead to the inciting incident. So on average, if a chapter is 3,000 words, 12,000 words divided by 3,000, that's 4 chapters. So your ordinary world can be 4 chapters long. All right. With that said, what you should do is experiment with different types of inciting incidents. You do not have to dedicate yourself or commit to one specific inciting incident. Think about how what you choose for your characters disrupts their world and what that looks like for the narrative moving forward. Once you've nailed the inciting incident down, the rest of the story will naturally follow, driven by the momentum of the initial spark. What you should do is embrace the disruption, challenge your protagonist, and make sure it's a moment that grabs everyone's attention, not only the reader, but the characters. Think about how you can approach your inciting incident outside the box. Perhaps it's an emotional turning point rather than an external disruption. Use this moment to craft an emotional hook that sets the stage for the journey ahead. I encourage, what I say is encourage yourself to think creatively. How can your protagonist's life be profoundly changed without a single loud moment? Sometimes the most beautiful inciting incident happens quietly within the character and ripple outward in a meaningful way. All right. Next video in the series will be plot point 3. The protagonist reacts to the inciting incident. Question: what kind of event could disrupt your protagonist's ordinary world so profoundly that they have no choice but to take action? How can this moment tie directly to the deepest fears or desires of that character? Let me know in the comments below. Hmm. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. And a nice thumbs up if possible. It does help the channel. I'll be honest with you. Anyway, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Thank you, boy.